everybody, hope you're doing okay. Now the Adidas Adizero SL here, the brand new shoe from Adidas. This is their cheapest model in the Adizero lineup, alongside the Adios 7, the Boston 11, the Adios Pro 3 and the Prime X. I was quite excited for this one because SL means super light, but in reality I think it might be more super lacking. I think I was hoping for a lot more from this shoe. I really did enjoy the SL20 2 years ago, which was like a nice nimble shoe. Felt very much in the ilk of the old Boston shoes before they sort of made them a lot bigger and chunkier with the Boston 10 and 11. But this one is kind of like somewhere in nothing really. It kind of feels like it's basically just a sort of a cheap version of the Boston 11, and it's got a few fit issues which I need to go into. So I went out today to test them out and did about 8 miles 70 minutes on a hilly road circuit, and initially straight out of the box they feel like really firm and slightly short. I thought that was a bit odd because Adidas have recently started doing the UK 13.5 that have been sadly lacking, but unfortunately this one seemed to come up about half a size short. Now I wondered why that was, and I realised it's because it's quite a lot of padding at the back here, even though that the insoles are exactly the same as the Boston 11. The Boston 11 doesn't actually have too much of a heel counter at all, so although it's got the same insole, I think basically I've been thrown forward in the SL and it's effectively making it slightly short. Another problem I had, which is very similar to the Pegasus 37, it's got quite a shallow toe box, so I felt like, especially on the right foot, that was almost crushing my toes a bit, so that was a bit disappointing. And they're quite a wide base, which is probably good for some, and if you compare it to the Boston 11, I don't know if you can see that, but you probably can't see that very well, but basically the SL is just slightly wider than the Boston 11, and it's a lot wider than the Adios 7, which really in comparison feels like a really sort of thin sort of torpedo shoe, which is ideal for my narrow feet. So maybe if you've got a wider foot, Adidas traditionally have been very narrow, which is why I usually like them, and this one definitely I think would come up a bit wider than normal, but it still probably feels going to be fitting a bit narrow on foot. So I think if you're a wide-footed person, then maybe not this is one ideal, but it may be better than some of the other shoes. And so compared to the Adios 7 then, just looking at them, how much narrower that Adios 7 looks compared to the SL. In terms of what the actual shoe is, well basically we've got a slab of light strike here. Now I think Adidas have been quite clever with their marketing because they've got their best foam is called Light Strike Pro, and their sort of cheap EVA type foam they've named Light Strike. So there's quite a night and day difference between Light Strike Pro that they've got in the Adios Pro 3 and the Prime X compared to this sort of basically always quite a cheap foam. I think this is like, you know, like Hoka have been struggling, haven't they, with their EVA foams, haven't really modernised, and I think this is kind of bit odd because Adidas with great fanfare brought out their Boost foam a couple of years ago, and I think at the time that was the market leading foam. It now sort of feels a bit heavy and if anything a bit sort of slightly firm compared to some soft foams these days. But this Light Strike foam, it's kind of something and nothing. I was expecting, because this shoe has no plates in it or anything, that the regular Light Strike would feel really soft, but that wasn't really the case at all. I mean, it wasn't bad feeling, I have to say, on foot, but if you like a sort of a soft shoe like the Invincible, then you're going to be sadly disappointed with this one. Now what it does have is a very small bit of Light Strike Pro on the front here as you toe off. Now they sort of marketed this, from what I've been seeing, as sort of like an easy day shoe. So the problem with that is I didn't really feel that Light Strike Pro at all until I did a couple of strides at the end of my run, and I was actually then having more of a toe off. When I was going along about 8-minute mile pace, 8:30-minute mile pace, which for me is kind of my sort of easy day pace these days. I'm getting ever slower, I think, as I get older. I couldn't really sort of feel this Light Strike Pro at all, and I was kind of thinking, well, it's just a bit of a marketing gimmick really, just to put a sliver of that in there and make out that it's a really sort of top line shoe. But I did notice when I was actually going a bit faster that I could actually then feel it. So maybe it's the case of, if the faster runner you are, the better runner you are, the more you actually get onto your toes when you toe off, it might feel a bit better. But I think they just sort of say that this is a shoe that is sort of really an entry-level shoe. I think they wanted to put in a shoe in the Adizero line that was just a bit cheaper. But I mean, I think the problem is that the retail price of this is £110, and I picked it up for £71. And I was thinking, well, I really have got my value for money for £71, because this is basically, I feel like this is a cheap shoe, and I feel like I've got all £71 of a cheap shoe. Someone said on my YouTube the other day, oh, a bit jokingly, there's a load of old blokes running around in £200 shoes. Well, I think the problem with that is that, yeah, I'd much rather be running around in my £200 shoes than sort of 3 of these, because what's the saying? buy cheap, buy twice. And I think that's kind of the problem with these sort of shoes, that once you got them on, you're kind of thinking, oh, well, okay, where are my sort of carbon fibre racers, or where are my sort of super foams like the Invincible on an easy day, or even the Nova Blast. So initially I slugged that one off, but I think compared to the Nova Blast, I'm thinking, well, I much prefer the Nova Blast. And I'm also thinking, well, actually, I really do sort of prefer the Boston 11, because largely I'll throw up a video to compare how the fit is.
Okay, so we've got the Boston 11 on the left and the SL on the right. Now, I do feel that the Boston 11 just fits me better. It effectively comes up longer, although the insoles are exactly the same, 32 centimetres, because I think there's just less padding at the back. So I think I'm basically being thrown forward in the SL, and it kind of feels that I've got more toe box room there, both because it's quite a shallow toe box in the SL and the fact it sits higher in the Boston 11. And I think also because of that padding, I just feel like I'm slightly further forward. So when I'm sort of tumbling off, I feel like I'm sort of feeling like I'm nearer to the front. So definitely something to be aware of.
Although this is a bit heavier, it's about 380 grams in my size, whereas the SL is 320. Now, that's another issue, because the SL is meant to be super light, but if you compare that to, say, the Endorphin Speed 3, then it isn't SL at all. I mean, this is 320. The Speed 3 in my size, UK 13, is 280. And even something like the Pegasus Turbo Next Nature, that I've done quite a lot of my sort of daily training in, although it's perhaps not the most exciting of shoes, it does actually feel a lot more nimble, and it's actually slightly heavier. So that's kind of a bit of an odd one. And the other shoe that I've been doing a lot of daily miles in of late is the Pegasus 39. Okay, the Pegasus 39 is a bit heavier, but it just feels like it fits me better. It actually sort of is more true to size. And I feel like if on an easy day, I just feel like it's a better option. So, okay, maybe I've only done one run in this shoe and I needed to give it more time. Will it soften up? Well, maybe. Not sure that I've really ever given Light Strike on its own a full go. I did have actually recently a 12-mile run in the Boston 11, and I was kind of surprising that I liked it more than I thought. I think now I've got my proper size in the 11, and I liked it a lot more than the 10, which basically was a bit short. So I kind of thinking, well, I can't really go to the next size up, which is a 14.5, because A, it would then be a lot wider, and B, it would be a lot heavier, and it certainly wouldn't then be super light. It would be almost super heavy. So, yeah, I mean, I think if you look at this shoe, definitely sort of look out for the sizing. I think effectively it fits half a size smaller than it says on the box compared to the Boston 11 Adios 7, largely because of this heel canter. And you kind of think that's a bit of a schoolboy error in shoes, because, okay, you put the same insole into a shoe, but if you don't adjust for the fact you've got more padding or less padding in the heel there, it throws you forward. I had an Under Armour shoe like that, which was exactly the same problem. The insole was exactly the right length, but it was so much padding in the heel, it threw you so far forward that it was a size too short. I had to send that one back. I basically couldn't wear it. Now, if you look at the outsole, now it doesn't actually have Continental rubber in this one. I think that's probably obviously to save money compared to the Boston 11. But I think you can see that although the patterns of those two shoes is slightly different, I don't think you're going to have any particular grip issues. And it may be a shoe that you can take it out on light trails for this one. But I just feel that there's almost like too much stack in this shoe for what it is. All this Light Strike stuff. I mean, I think when you got the Adios 7 here, I think if you're sort of comfortable with sort of having a bit more of a minimalist feel relative these days, then I would almost say that this is more like the sort of like the modern daily trainer that it feels really light compared to the SL. And Adidas, their sort of marketing strategy is put up a recommended retail price of quite a lot, then offers straight away 35% discount codes. So yeah, you can pick up the Adios 7 now, the Boston 11, all with like these discount codes and get them well under £100. And you think, well, don't, whatever you do, pay £110 for this shoe, because I don't think it's really even worth £71. But if you do like a firm shoe and perhaps you want a bit more width than normal and you're okay with the fact it might be a bit short, then maybe this is one to try. It does look quite nice, doesn't it? But yeah, I was kind of sadly disappointed. It has this odd heel thing at the back, like all they do at the moment. It's kind of pointless though, because when you've got a padded thing at the back here, it almost sort of renders it rather useless. I don't even use it at all. But yeah, it's not super light, it's very firm, it's a bit short, it's a shallow toe box. Basically, it's a cheap shoe and you get what you pay for and don't pay too much. Okay, so I hope you found this interesting. Like and subscribe to that, and see you next one then. Bye.